Welcome to Star Watch Now, your front row seat to all the hottest gossip, drama, and breaking news from the world of entertainment. If it's trending, shocking, or star-studded, we're covering it. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss what's coming next. When the world wasn't watching, a quiet rooftop flickered with candlelight, soft music, and one of the most unexpected gestures from China's most private superstar. Wang Yibo, cool, composed, and famously guarded, just made a move no one saw coming. And it wasn't on a film set. This wasn't a scene. This was real. And the one across the table? Xiao Zhan. Stay with us as we uncover the heartfelt, deeply symbolic dinner that stunned fans across the world, and may just redefine the word connection. On a quiet evening in Beijing, far from the spotlight and the chaos of red carpets, a moment unfolded that was never meant to be seen. No cameras, no stylists, no carefully curated social media posts. Just a rooftop, dimly lit with warm lights, and a stillness that carried more weight than any fanfare ever could. The air held a calm reverence, as if time had slowed for something sacred. This was not an event. It was an intention. Wang Yibo, a man known more for his precision than his vulnerability, arrived early. He requested no publicity, no security detail visible. Just privacy, an uncommon luxury in the world of celebrity. The table he chose was placed at the edge of the rooftop, with a sweeping view of the city's nightscape, glittering like a silent audience. But this performance was for no one but one person, Xiao Zhan. Everything was considered, but nothing felt forced. A string musician tuned gently in the background, playing melodies soft enough to be felt more than heard. The dinnerware was simple, the flowers understated, white lilies and crimson roses, elegant and symbolic. Wang Yibo sat quietly, his fingers tracing the rim of a folded envelope resting beside his plate. It was not a script. It was a letter written by hand, crafted with care. When Xiao Zhan arrived, there were no wide smiles or exaggerated greetings. There was recognition, a kind of emotional familiarity that can only exist between two people who have weathered storms together, in silence under pressure. What passed between them in that first glance was beyond words. No statement was released, no official acknowledgement given. Yet those who witnessed this encounter, few as they were, knew they had seen something rare, an honest moment between two souls unfiltered by fame. As the city lights shimmered below and the soft notes of the violin drifted through the evening air, a quiet stillness settled over the rooftop. There, beneath the gentle flicker of candlelight, Wang Yibo reached into his coat pocket and retrieved something small, yet profoundly personal, a letter. Its edges slightly worn from being held, folded with intention. It was clear this was not written in haste. This was not a gesture meant for spectacle. It was meant for understanding. He slid the envelope gently across the table, letting it rest near Xiao Zhan's hand without a word. The moment hung in the air, delicate and unspoken. Xiao Zhan looked down at the envelope, then up at Wang Yibo, and in that silence, something passed between them. Trust, perhaps, or a quiet acknowledgement of everything they had been through. The letter was not long, but each word carried the weight of years. It spoke of gratitude, of loyalty, of moments behind closed doors when everything felt uncertain. It did not romanticize the past, nor did it ask for anything in return. It simply honored the truth, that when things were at their most fragile, Xiao Zhan had remained. When the noise grew too loud, when reputations were questioned and futures uncertain, he had stood firm. And Wang Yibo had noticed. There was no need to read the letter aloud. Xiao Zhan's eyes moved slowly over the page, his expression softening with each line. No dramatic gestures followed. He simply placed the letter back on the table, met Wang Yibo's gaze, and nodded with a depth that needed no translation. In that small exchange, something was healed, something was remembered, and something unspoken, yet enduring, was quietly reaffirmed. As the dinner unfolded, it became increasingly clear that every element of the evening had been chosen not for luxury, but for meaning. There was a quiet elegance to the way the space had been curated, a soft harmony between intention and emotion. The choice of venue, the warm amber lighting, even the rhythm of the music, all spoke of a story that could not be told in headlines. It was not about extravagance, but expression. The table itself bore subtle, deliberate details. In the center stood a modest arrangement of white lilies and crimson roses. More than decoration, they reflected contrast and unity, purity and passion, vulnerability and strength. These were not random choices. They were symbols of who they had been and who they had become. There was something deeply poetic in the pairing of those flowers, much like the quiet dynamic between the two men sharing that space. When the dessert arrived, it seemed simple at first. A slice of tiramisu, understated and classic. But as Xiao Zhan leaned forward, he noticed the initials delicately inscribed in the chocolate dust, XY and YB. It was subtle, almost shy in its presentation, and yet profoundly intimate. He looked up at Wang Yibo, and for a moment, neither spoke. They didn't need to. This was not theater. It was remembrance. A quiet promise, perhaps, hidden in something as ordinary as a dessert. Everything about the evening whispered of connection. Real, resilient, and carefully guarded from the chaos of fame. The symbolism wasn't grand or obvious, but layered and sincere. It echoed the nature of their bond. Never loud, but always present. In a world where every gesture is often amplified for attention, theirs remained grounded in the unspoken. And that made it all the more powerful. No official photos were ever released. No statements were made. And yet, somehow, word of that quiet evening spread like wildfire across the digital world. It began as a whisper, a single fan account mentioning a rooftop sighting, a violinist playing beneath the stars, two familiar silhouettes seated close, surrounded by candlelight. There were no paparazzi shots, no viral videos, just fragments, descriptions, feelings, and still that was enough. The internet responded not with skepticism, but with something far more powerful, emotion. Within hours, hashtags surged across platforms in multiple languages. Fans in Seoul, Tokyo, Paris, Jakarta, Manila, and Los Angeles all echoed a similar sentiment. Something meaningful had taken place, and though they hadn't seen it, they believed in it. Not because of proof, but because of the quiet truth that often lies between the lines. For years, people had watched Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan grow, not just in fame but in spirit. They had weathered storms side by side, moved through controversies, and continued to support one another in a world that so rarely allows genuine connection. So when the story of that evening began to circulate, it wasn't received as gossip. It was received as confirmation. A collective breath held for so long had finally been released. It wasn't just a dinner. It was a moment of clarity in a world often clouded by performance and pretense. What made it shake the internet wasn't drama or spectacle. It was sincerity. The kind of sincerity that transcends borders, languages, and generations. People didn't just see romance or nostalgia. They saw something human, something rare. And in that fleeting moment, shared by two people under a quiet sky, millions found a piece of themselves reflected, yearning, soft, and deeply moved. Their relationship has long defied labels. To call them simply friends would feel insufficient, yet to assign it a romantic title might oversimplify something far more intricate. What exists between Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan is a connection woven from trust, silence, and time. A quiet companionship forged in moments unseen by the world. In an industry where relationships are often curated for headlines, there stands in contrast. Unspoken, unpolished, and deeply personal. From their first on-screen encounter to years of shared triumphs and setbacks, they have grown, not around one another, but with one another. It is not the closeness found in constant presence, but the rare bond that can exist even in distance. One where understanding remains untouched by absence or noise. Their gestures are rarely grand, yet it's in the smallest things. A glance that lingers a second too long, a hand briefly resting on a shoulder, or a quiet word offered off stage, that the depth of their connection reveals itself. It's the kind of bond that requires no explanation, no performance. It simply is. Perhaps that's why their story resonates so powerfully across cultures and generations. Audiences in different corners of the world see in them something universally human, the desire to be truly seen and accepted without condition. Their connection is not defined by titles, but by consistency, loyalty, and a shared history carried like a quiet flame between them. In a world of shifting allegiances and fleeting affection, Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan offer something different, something enduring, not a relationship designed to fit a narrative, but a living, breathing bond that continues to evolve, subtle, steady, and remarkably sincere. And perhaps that is what makes it so extraordinary. It doesn't need to be named to be real. It simply exists, and that is enough. Much of what made that evening unforgettable wasn't captured in bold headlines or viral rumors. It was hidden in the stillness, in the fleeting gestures, in the kind of silence that speaks volumes when shared by two people who know each other intimately. For those who looked closer, beyond the romance of a candlelit dinner or the soft flicker of violin music, the beauty lay in the quiet details most would have overlooked. Wang Yibo wore a black suit, not overly formal, but refined. At first glance, it was simply elegant. But those familiar with Xiao Zhan's past interviews would remember his fondness for minimalism and the quiet charm of classic cuts. It was as if Yibo dressed not to impress, but to reflect comfort and respect. Something tailored not for an audience, but for someone who mattered. The music playing that evening was subtle, gentle. But those who truly listened might have recognized the faint melody of an old theme song from one of their early collaborations. A piece that never topped charts, but held sentimental value. It played not loudly, but just enough to be felt, like a memory gently resurfacing in the background. Even the menu wasn't extravagant. Instead, it featured dishes both of them had mentioned in past interviews, homely, simple, nostalgic. There was something deeply moving about the intention behind it all. The effort not to showcase, but to connect. These details, invisible to most, revealed something precious. Not just love, but remembrance. Not just presence, but thoughtfulness. In a world obsessed with spectacle, Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan chose subtlety. And through that, they spoke directly to the hearts of those willing to see beyond the obvious, fans who understood that sometimes, it is the quietest moments that echo the loudest. In a world that moves too fast, it was a dinner that slowed time, a gesture that said, "I see you," and sometimes, that's all the love we need. Speech balloon if this story moved you even just a little. Backhand index pointing right like. Comment your favorite detail and bell subscribe to our channel for more touching, deeply human moments from the world of your favorite stars. Whether you're watching from Seoul, Tokyo, Paris, Manila, LA, Jakarta, or beyond, thank you for being part of this global community of heart and story. Movie Camera will be back soon with more. Until then, stay kind, stay inspired, and never stop believing in the quiet power of connection.